My name is Madison. I am the digital archivist at Pittsburg State University. And we use our digital commons, our exhibits, as a way to kind of provide histories on some of the people, our locations, and some of our events. And so, Sarah, do you want to take over?
Thank you. I'm Sarah DeCaro. I am the University Archivist and Curator of Special Collections at Pittsburg State University. Just to clarify, we are in Southeast Kansas. That comes up. And like Madison was saying, we've had a lot of success with leveraging our student worker talents, especially for DCX and for other things in digital commons as well, but we're going to kind of focus on DCX for the purpose of this presentation. So there are a few ways we've been able to do that. One of the main ways is to leverage their talents in visual arts. You can see there we've got some categories: graphic design, photography, videography. One of the things that really sort of prompted this was our annual lecture series that we do every year in October. And we do an accompanying exhibit in our reading room. We have several cases that need something in them. And that's been a really good way to use that space, but also to kind of work in some things that maybe don't always see the light of day that are in special collections, that we can make all that flow together. And with DCX, you do have a very visual, it's a very visual sort of thing. So the graphic art part is really very important. That's kind of where the graphic design comes in. And I started thinking about it, and I thought, well, we have students here that are majoring in graphic design. What if we actually hired them and started using those talents for us? So that's one way we did it. Photography and videography, kind of very similar in what they're doing with that. So with the lecture series, we did actually have speakers who wanted their lectures recorded. And then it was sort of me going, well, yeah, I think we can do that. And but if I had a student who really enjoyed doing that, wouldn't it be even better? And also that's university archives. So, and the photography is the same way as well. They would photograph the events and also just some of the events that went on in the library. The other thing is the more like written and reading part, that form of communication. So graphic arts and just artistic design or even marketing in general may not always be an obvious choice when you're thinking of hiring student workers. I know it wasn't for me at first. It seemed like a lot of students that I got who were interested in working in special collections were majoring in history, which that's also what I majored in. So it seemed like a very obvious fit. And that's sort of where those students work with these talents, especially the research component and the writing too. And we had some luck as well. We had students from other countries, and frequently we were able to use those skills to do some translation, and that was very helpful as well. So the first project we were really able to kind of put all this, into place was in 2024. We did an exhibit about the Donnelly Garment Company. that was based in Kansas City. It began in the late teens, early 1920s. It was founded by a woman named Nell Donnelly. And we do try to make our lecture series have a local component, something that relates to local history. And even though the Donnelly Garment Company was based in Kansas City, Nell herself was actually from Parsons, Kansas, which is a small town just maybe a few miles from Pittsburg, where we live. So, sorry. And with the lecture series, we chose that topic too because we had things in our archives that would also work for that may not seem obvious. For instance, our university was founded in 1903, and we have had a family and consumer science program there. We still do. And that ended up being a really great fit for putting things in the cases, because these are people who are talking about sewing, and they made these, even like going back 100 years, these very amazing little notebooks where they've got samples of all their needlework and buttonholes and things like that. And that was actually perfect for the sewing part. I will circle back to that in a minute, but I realized, okay, yeah, with this slide, we have Marla, who is, K-State also has a family and consumer sciences department. That was our speaker, Marla Day, who is an expert on the Donnelly Garment Company, and the brand of dresses was called Nellie Dawn, and it was quite famous, believe it or not, throughout the middle part of the century. And those are our students there too. At the top, that's Brent, who is one of our graduate students, and did a lot of research for our collections. And Angel there on the right in the red hat, we'll talk about her quite a bit. She is was a graphic communications major. She's graduated now. But a lot of the visual stuff you'll see for the Nellie Dawn things that we're going to show you, she did that. So this is kind of what I was talking about there in the top slide. You can see that old sewing machine is from 1889. And it's been sitting in special collections, and I'm just kind of like, well, this is very nice, but what am I going to do with it? But it turns out it's perfect for Nellie Dawn, because Nell herself started the company actually sewing dresses in her attic. She really did, in the late teens, like 1917, around then. Her husband was at war, and that pink gingham is very important because that dress, you can see there also too on the poster there on the right, that was the thing that really made her. House dresses were kind of frumpy, and actually Nell had this great idea, like, well, what if house dresses were not frumpy? What if they were something that women actually wanted to wear, that appealed to them, that were attractive and cute? So that is how Nell made her first dress orders. She sewed a lot of those, and they sold out within one day. And she did them all on a machine, very similar to that in her attic. We also had other things. We had these postcards of Parsons. That's the business college where she attended in Parsons before she moved to Kansas City. That's a picture of her there at the bottom. Those are some things too that we found in other collections. We did kind of have to that's where the research part came in as well, as we got things from the Missouri Historical Society, we got things from Lindenwood College, where Nell attended, and yeah, we were able to just sort of fit all that together, but then it worked very well. There on the left, that is one of our family and consumer sciences classes from the 1920s. And so we were able to kind of work some of those photos in too. Okay, so I'm going to pass it over to Madison here, and she's going to talk a bit more.
And so one of our collections that really, I think, gained a lot of traction was our printing plates collection. And so in Southeast Kansas, we had a publication called The Little Blue Books. This was published by the Haldeman-Julius Company. It was an early to mid-century publication that published around 2,000 books. These were very small publications. The main idea was that they'd be small enough to fit in your pocket, and for 5 cents, you could basically get a education that you can carry around. And so it was trying to get information accessible to as many people as possible. And so there's some examples of the blue books up on the screen. And so we have nearly every single blue book that was published, or at least a copy of it. But we also have the metal printing plates used to print the books. So we have about hundreds, possibly thousands of these plates. We don't have the full collection. They're kind of hit or miss if we have them or not. But they are old, they're corroded, covered in ink. They've been through a fire. So they're old and dirty. And Angel, who you saw previously, was an intern turned student worker. And she asked, as part of her internship, could she clean the plates? And we said, yes, absolutely. She had already experience in traditional print. And so she took it upon herself to start trying to clean and conserve all of our plates. And from there, kind of got the question of, okay, if we can clean them, can we still use them? And from there, a very large collaboration started. For that, Sarah, our archivist, and then Steve Cox, the archivist before that, the plates had just been big conundrums, like how one takes so much space, and then what do we do with all of these? But with Angel's help, and another student worker, Rafael, they collaborated with the art department. And so you can see there's Rafael, Professor Olivia Timmons, and her student worker, Alyssa. Them and Angel, they all worked together to start trying to print with the books, or with the printing plates. They found all the plates for a book called 14 Little Essays. And with a traditional printer, they did the process just as they would back in the 1920s. And throughout the whole cleaning process and printing, Angel and Rafael worked together to document the process with photos and videos. And so on the screen, I have the thumbnails for 2 of the videos they created. One is Angel explaining the cleaning process of the printing plates, and the other is a little behind the scenes of them experimenting with the printing to find out the best way to get a clean print with as little mess as possible, because, fun fact, ink gets everywhere. And as Sarah mentioned earlier, we have also been able to use our students to help document other events in and around the library. And so there's a video where we are getting tour of one of our buildings, Kels, which is currently sinking. And so we are in the process, we, the university, are building a whole new Kels building in our downtown, but now we have a video that Rafael was able to take during the original Kels, which will most likely be torn down at some point. And then we have started an annual AI symposium. And so Rafael and some other student workers were able to do the videos and photography for that as well. And all of those videos and photos are available either on our digital commons or our DCX.
We mentioned foreign language translation as well, and we talked a bit about the printing project. So Olivia in the art department had a printing press. It needed to be portable, and that was something I had actually asked Angel about when she started cleaning the plates. I said, can we still use these? And she's like, yeah. I'm like, oh, okay. Is there such a thing as a press that you can take somewhere and you know, use? And she's like, I think so. And so we did a little research, and yeah, Olivia had these small tabletop printing presses from the 1950s that were actually used for printing things like business cards. But printing plates, they're about yay big, like maybe 1.5 feet long and maybe 6-7 inches this way. So we did have to cut them in half, but we were able to fit them in this small printing press, and we could actually take it with us. So we applied and we went to the National Council on Public History Conference in Montreal, and we were able to do a session where we did a demonstration and people could come and actually print their own little blue book. But we also had posters, and you can see the French version there. We had them in English, but we're like, hey, wouldn't it be awesome? We're going to Montreal, and we have a student worker who is fluent in both French and English. So Margot Perea de la Cruz was our student who did the translation for us. Worked out beautifully. And of course, all of those posters and things are in DCX. You can get on there and see them, as well as many images of the printing plates. And it's a little weird to see them out of context, but one thing that is very nice about DCX, when people cannot attend the lecture series and see the actual exhibit firsthand, they can at least get a sense of it by looking at it through DCX. So that's one thing that's been really great about it. And the graphic design, most of that has all been done by student workers. They are much more talented at it than I am. I do a lot of the writing of the text and the content, but most of the graphic design has been done by our student workers. Angel did this one, and then the next one, Rafael, who you saw doing the printing, he did a lot of the George Sweat stuff, which Madison will talk about here in a moment.
So Nellie Dawn was our 2024 Jean Gruson lecture, and our 2025 one was over a alumni named George Sweat. He was a black baseball player, Pitt State alum, and really an amazing person. And this project ended up being our most collaborative one yet between ourselves and our students. Pretty much every single student worker, I think around 5, had a task related either to the research, organizing, or creation of materials, like this poster. And something we did for the Nellie Dawn exhibit that we repeated for the George Sweat exhibit was taking all the students on a trip to a relevant museum. And so for Nellie Dawn, that was the Oklahoma City Museum of Art, which had a exhibit on Edith Head, a Hollywood costume designer. And so for George Sweat, we traveled to the Kansas City Negro Leagues Baseball Museum. And we used this opportunity to see how the exhibits of a similar era and collection organized, described, and displayed their items. And it was really effective for Nellie Dawn and even more so for George Sweat. Even if our students were already interested in the subject matter, they're not experts. I know next to nothing about baseball. I still know next to nothing about baseball. But we all really enjoyed visiting this museum, learning about what it was like for those baseball players back in the early 1920s. And it was amazing to see the students get really immersed into the project. And they bought into all the projects very strongly. And they ended up asking questions and having ideas that Sarah and I would have never asked on our own. And so, then we have our impact. And so, what is the impact that we have by using our student worker specialties? One, that collaboration aspect. It helps the students kind of dive into something that might be completely unfamiliar by doing something that is familiar, like graphic design. There is a timeline Raphael created for the George Sweat exhibit that is still on display. The students' ideas and perspectives have really helped us create a more comprehensive exhibit, both online and in person. And I think their ideas have increased our download counts. We can't get them from DCX, but this is the download counts from Digital Commons. And the students' creations with being such visual media, I think has really increased the interest in what we have posted. And so with that, I say thank you for listening.